We're scanning left to right. We can see the pump package on the left, and now we're moving into the free cooling and mechanical array, making a stop at the remote control panel. We've got two remote control panels, and the wiring there showing it connecting to the master controller. And then as we pan left, we'll see it connected to the C1 panel that ties us into the remote panel. And here are the two remote panels. We'll come in and do a close-up of the status lights and pump control for the remote panel. And then as we pan up, we'll see the chiller start stop. So this is the pump start stop for one of the two pump sets. Here's the chiller start stop, and then a remote display. When we go over to the other remote panel, you'll notice it's identical except that it does not have a chiller start stop. So indicator lights on the right, the barrel switch is the start stop for the other set of pumps. There are two sets of pumps on this project, a primary loop and a secondary loop. And that fill-in section is in the spot where a chiller start-stop would normally be, but we can really only have one chiller start-stop. We'll continue on panning to the right with the free cooling modules and then the mechanical modules at this end of the machine. And we'll continue on with our tour of the pump module. So this is the smaller two circulating pumps and the supply and return to the room being served. I'll have a close-up view here, and we'll look at the differential pressure switches that serve as a proof of flow for rotating pumps in case of failure. Those are shown here circled in orange. We'll continue panning to the left, and we'll see the three types of tanks that we have in this project. First in our view there is the maroon bladder type expansion tank, the large storage tank, which also serves as a decoupler in this system. And then shown in white number 3 there is our large glycol feeder. Item 4 is the junction box that has controls and power for the glycol mini feeder. So again, three types of tanks. Number 1, expansion. Number 2, storage / decoupler. And number 3, the glycol feeder tank. We'll continue panning and going to the left, the two larger pumps that are serving both the chiller and a number of spaces. So this is a primary loop set of pumps. Show the supply and return there in the upper left. We'll move in here and see the inputs to the two differential pressure switches. So there's the two hoses that are tied into one side of the pumps coming down. See the differential pressure switches mounted there on the frame. And then those two hose connections are on the other side of the pumps. And just kind of scanning right to get an overall view of the back side of this pump array. We're going to work ourselves around to the control cabinet that's serving those primary pumps, the two larger pumps in the system. And we'll take a view of the components one by one. So starting here in the upper left, we have the VFDs, one for each of the chillers, ABB, ACH 550 type VFDs. We have power coming in down there at the bottom, coming up through fuses and then fed into the VFDs. I'll give you a close-up of the control panel here. And then as we come back down, we'll see the power phase monitor just to the right here with the settings adjustable for over voltage, under voltage, etc. Control power transformer there, the black device in the middle, control power breaker, and then an automatic timer, that ABB device for switching pumps. We have our two timers there, TR1 and TR2, that are tied to our flow switches, and then relays for the basic pump cabinet control logic. So moving from that cabinet, we see the storage / decoupler tank in the middle. And then a similar identical cabinet for the pumps that are on the room distribution system. And then just a scan from right to left of the entire pump module. And this is the single point power connection where power for the entire skid, all 4 pumps, comes in here. through the door interlock disconnect switch, shown there, up through a power distribution block, and then over to 2 circuit breakers that feed each of the 2 pump VFD cabinets. So this shows the 2 remote panels to the right, and this cabinet here is the C1 panel, which is the interface for the 2 remote panels. And then we'll get a view of the dual basket strainer, and then the headers in the free cooling sections. We'll talk about the 3 headers in just a little bit. So a view into the free cooling module in the back, you can see the 3-way valve that opens when the air temperature is sufficiently cold to do free cooling. So we'll work our way down the front of the array. This is a standard free cooling module master. So it has 2 Corel controllers, a larger master controller, and then the slave board for controlling free cooling operation. There's a close-up view of those 2 controllers. The power input end of the free cooling module. So we scan right past those 2 free cooling modules and then come to the master mechanical module. It has 2 physically identical Corel controllers on the left-hand side. That's how you can tell that it's the master controller. This is power coming into the unit through the control power breaker, condenser fan breaker, and compressor breakers and contactors, coming down into the control power transformer and the manual off auto switch. And then the slave controller for this module is on the right, the master is on the left, and this is the electronic expansion valve controller shown there with the blue screen. So now we'll work our way into the brake in this array and look back down, seeing free cooling modules on the right, 3 of them, and then 2 free cooling modules at the far end, and the master mechanical module here with its evaporator, dual circuited evaporator, and 2 tandem compressors. The 3 headers are numbered here. Green number 1 is the free cool inlet. That's water coming into this array. Red number 2 is the free cool outlet, water coming out of the free cooling coils. It also serves as the inlet to the mechanical modules. The lowest header is the leaving connection for the mechanical modules. That's chilled water that has come out of the evaporators in the mechanical modules. And then that lowest header also serves to carry the water back through the opposite end down where the free cooling module is, so that we can have supply and return from the same spot of this array. So here's a typical slave module. There are 2 of them. As we zoom in, you'll note that there's an open space. So if this was a master mechanical module, it would have 2 Corel controllers. When it only has 1 in that right position, you can tell that it's a slave module. Other than that difference, the slave modules are identical to the master module. This is junction box 1, so power input spot number 1 for the entire array. And we'll take a tour of this module. We have a door interlock disconnect circuit breaker there with power coming up through that, through a power distribution block, and then to individual mechanical circuit breakers. And these feed mechanical modules and free cooling modules, and you can see the labels on them to determine which module is being fed from which breaker. As we move out, we can look down the service walkway, and then we'll move over into the second junction box, J box number 2, serving the other modules in this array. Again, up through the door interlock disconnect switch, through the power distribution block, and then to the individual module breakers. Now looking down the back of the array, we can see 2 additional slave modules. We'll get a close-up view of the lower half, working from left to right, the brazed plate evaporator, filter dryer, and then the tandem compressors. This back view of the pump array is going to be used to show the pump cabinet that was built. The white box here is superimposed to show what the pump cabinet, shown here, will look like on top of the pump skid. There are 4 doors on each side that can open up to give access to the pumps and the VFD and power inlet cabinets. And there are a series of holes in the base of this pump skid house that meet up with holes on the base frame of the pump for connections at the job site. The opening in that wall is to allow the user to see the sight glass on the storage/decoupler tank included with the pump skid. And that concludes our tour.